Good evening. Thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business, and I'm Paul Graney. Banks count their losses after the Archegos fund was liquidated. We ask if more regulation is needed to stop it happening again. The Amazon union vote is ready to be counted after workers wrapped up voting yesterday. And Ohio billboards are popping up across the United States. They're trying to lure businesses away from states like New York and California. That and much more coming up at NTD Business. If your small business owner is still recovering from the pandemic, it's confirmed you'll now have 2 more months to apply for a small business loan. President Biden said this afternoon he signed off an extension for the Paycheck Protection Program. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more details from D.C.
The Paycheck Protection Program was supposed to end this month, but with the newly approved extension, businesses have until May 31st to apply for a loan. The administration will be processing applications until the end of June, so it's possible that businesses could be waiting until that June 30th deadline to find out if they're approved.
Nearly 90,000 businesses are still in line, and there's money left. Without somebody signing this bill today, there are hundreds of thousands of people who could lose their jobs, and small family businesses that might close forever.
It passed smoothly in Congress with only 7 senators opposing the extension. And while Congress, for the most part, agrees on this spending bill, lawmakers are still starkly divided over Biden's proposed infrastructure package.
To deploy 30 gigawatts of offshore wind in the United States by 2030.
A first step they're proposing is to make use of shallow waters between Long Island and the New Jersey coast.
So that this economy remains competitive and so that we increase productivity.
The bill is estimated to cost around $3 trillion. And while the Biden administration says it will rake in $12 billion in capital investments, Republicans are raising an alarm bell that a massive tax hike to pay for it could hurt the economy. And some moderate Democrats also expressing that their states have struggled with higher taxes.
Higher taxes are stifling economic growth for our region and decreasing property values, which are already falling. Our taxes are too high. They should be cut, not raised. Younger workers and businesses are moving out.
And Representative Scott Peters of California says he's more comfortable with a smaller hike, suggesting a 25% corporate tax is better than Biden's proposed 28%. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin suggests that he won't support the 28% tax either. And aside from these moderate Democrats that could pose a challenge to passing this infrastructure bill that could cause tax hikes, the Senate filibuster could block it too. But reports are coming out that Senate Leader Chuck Schumer is looking to sidestep the filibuster and use budget reconciliation for a second time. We reached out to his office to find out if he plans to move forward with this, but haven't heard back just yet. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
Biden is expected to give more specific details about the multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure package tomorrow. He's making a stop in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We reported last week that to pay for some of the infrastructure bill, the White House was considering taxing you for every mile you traveled. Remember? Well, you'll be glad to hear they've put that plan into reverse. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg saying a mileage tax won't be part of the upcoming infrastructure bill anyway.
You're going to hear more details from the administration in the coming days about how to pay for this. But one thing I will do is reiterate the president's commitment that his proposals will not raise taxes at all on anyone making under $400,000 a year.
Last week, Buttigieg said a mileage tax showed a lot of promise. It would tax people based on how many miles they drive as an alternative to raising gas taxes. But not everyone was happy about the idea. Critics say a mileage tax would impact low-income earners too much. Buttigieg says he wants to find a way to fund the upcoming infrastructure plan that doesn't burden the middle class. And a group of Senate Democrats have proposed a new way to raise money for President Biden's plan. They're pushing for a tax on unrealized capital gains at death. Take stocks as an example. Under current rules, when someone dies holding stocks that have grown in value, the government won't collect taxes on those capital gains. Whoever inherits those stocks will only pay capital gains for any value increase after they took ownership of the stocks. But the new proposal would tax unrealized capital gains when heirs inherit assets. So say you inherit $6 million in stock originally bought for $4 million, then the $2 million of capital gains will be the target of the tax. But Democrats want to focus the tax on the most wealthy, they say. So there'll be a $1 million exemption. We don't know if such a plan would have any Republican support, though. New York is floating new taxes right now as well, and that's giving other states a chance to sell themselves as a low-cost alternative. Ohio, for example, is putting up signs in the Big Apple itself to attract businesses away from the city. So how's it working out? NTD's Phil Zoe has the story.
Your buildings are taller, our taxes are smaller. That's what it says on a large print billboard in Midtown New York. Economic development nonprofit Jobs Ohio has put up signs across the U.S. touting the state's low taxes.
Lower property taxes, lower business income taxes, and things like avoiding the death tax really do add up as to why Ohio is a much more competitive environment than.
Ohio currently doesn't have a corporate income tax rate. That's compared to 6.5% in New York and nearly 9% in California. Ohio also doesn't have an estate or death tax.
So as business owners look to retire and pass along their assets from their businesses to their families and their loved ones, government's not going to come in and get another take.
Ohio has improved its rank to number 29 for economic outlook in the Rich States, Poor States report. But Williams says Ohio isn't stopping there.
Ohio does want to become even a top 10 state. And so it's not just the current policy, it's the expectation of the future business environment that attracts businesses.
Jobs Ohio says the billboards are working because they're getting calls and emails from people who are interested. The billboard campaign started last fall, and the nonprofit says they hope to continue attracting businesses to the Buckeye State. Phil Zoe, NTD News.
The markets closed lower today as higher Treasury yields added pressure on big tech stocks. The Dow fell 104 points, 0.31%. S&P 500 lost 13 points, 0.32%. The Nasdaq dropped 14 points, or about 0.1%. Tech stocks are really feeling the pain from those rising rates. Nasdaq is on track for its biggest monthly loss since November. The 10-year Treasury yield hit a 14-month high of 1.78% early Tuesday, came back a little bit by late afternoon and fell to about 1.72%. Oil fell and gold also fell significantly, under $1,700 an ounce now. JP Morgan fears up to $10 billion could be wiped off the balance sheets of some of the world's biggest banks. It's after Bill Wong's Archegos investment fund was liquidated last week. The banks lent money to Wong to buy assets, but it looks like they didn't realize just how much borrowed money or how much leverage Wong had in his portfolio. It's harder to measure the risk because Wong traded unconventional types of derivatives called contracts for difference swaps. So now some are asking, is more regulation needed to prevent this from happening again and putting the market at risk? As Daniel LaCalle, he's the chief economist at the Tariffs hedge fund, which has $6 billion in assets under his management.
Well, I think that ultimately you can ask for more regulation every day, and what we see is that more paperwork, more regulation is not the solution. Ultimately, the lesson from this episode, which we hope is a single episode and that it doesn't move into other more important players, but ultimately the lesson of this episode is that the policy of central banks is not leading investors to be prudent and to take risk-adjusted bets, but the opposite. The level of beta exposure of hedge funds is unprecedented. Hedge funds are the longest I have seen since I worked in the industry. Longest as in more exposed to the markets. Their long positions and their exposure to the market is much higher than what they used to have. The same with institutional funds. It's not just hedge funds. It's also the kind of risk that even pension funds have to take in order to achieve a certain level of return, a certain level of yield for increasing risk. Think about this. even a pension fund that used to be able to generate a 2-3% return for its investors on a yearly basis now needs to be invested in extreme high yield type of bonds or in equities. We have seen that traditional pension funds that used to be 100% invested in bonds are now almost 50-60% invested in equities, and they are more exposed to high yield, which is junk bonds in many cases. So little by little, year by year, in this environment of extreme low rates and high liquidity, what we're seeing is that episodes like this are not a sort of surprise, is that it's a direct consequence of extreme financial repression.
And are you saying there's a possibility that a bigger player in the market might surprise us like this has surprised us? Are you concerned about that?
Well, I'm extremely concerned about the incredible tolerance for extreme risk that is seen not just in hedge funds, which are supposed to be more risky and in which investors are need to be people that are well versed in markets. Nobody can just simply invest in a hedge fund. No. I'm concerned about the level of risk that is being taken from small investors, from retail investors, buying ETFs no matter what, taking aggressive bets on the market as if markets could only rise, buying the most cyclical assets, the most exposed assets to the cycle at any price, at any cost, with very leveraged bets. And those risks may seem irrelevant when markets are just going up all the time. But think of what happened with this particular one. What started the margin call problem came from a snap in a couple of bets. It wasn't even a drastic move in the markets or a crisis or a new wave of the pandemic. It was just a few stocks that went the wrong way, and that triggered a massive 20 billion sell-off in the market. So we need to be repeating over and over and over again that central banks do not mitigate risk, they increase it, and that extremely low rates in an environment of recovery and extreme liquidity generate these types of perverse incentives.
Incredible. Daniel, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
PayPal has started allowing US customers to use Bitcoin and other cryptos to just buy stuff at the checkout. As president says, it's the first time ever that cryptocurrencies can be used just as easily as a credit or debit card. PayPal already allowed customers to buy, sell, and hold virtual money. Now, if you hold cryptocurrencies in your PayPal digital wallet, you'll be able to convert them to regular money to make purchases. And besides Bitcoin, the system also covers Ether, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin. And the service will be available at all its 29 million merchants in the coming months. Big news for Bitcoin. And the Amazon union vote is ready for tallying. A warehouse in Alabama just finished voting yesterday for what would be the first Amazon union. The results could potentially have broad implications for labor nationwide. NTD's Colin Fredrickson reports.
People united will never be defeated.
We might soon see Amazon's first union. Warehouse workers in Bessemer, Alabama, finished voting on whether to unionize on Monday.
People deserve a livable wage. It is unions that fight for that.
The U.S. National Labor Relations Board is now reviewing the ballots. In a written statement, Amazon points out that the group representing the workers, RWDSU, has fallen 25%, and that Amazon provides starting wages of $15 or more, health care from day one, and a safe and inclusive workplace. Experts say it won't be easy for a union to form.
This is a really tough gig, organizing warehouse workers. They turn over a tremendous amount. A union is about the solidarity between workers, right? It's about workers acting together.
Documents show that Amazon could be firing around 10% of its staff annually. Empty spots are quickly filled because Amazon pays reasonably well, requires little training, there's health care, and people can start work quickly. Also, there's no way to form one big Amazon union.
The way that labor organizing is legally constrained in the U.S., it's going to take a very long time because each warehouse has to be unionized separately.
If Bessemer successfully forms a union, some experts say this could be a groundbreaking watershed moment for labor. Others say it probably won't be a big deal.
Amazon can be difficult about actually negotiating. It can appeal on the grounds that some of its claims about the union were not properly treated. And a year from now, it can call for a new election to reject the union.
It's unclear when the results of the vote will come out. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
And data till January shows home prices are rising at the fastest pace in 7 years. Low mortgage rates are fueling demand for single-family houses, and there are relatively few houses coming on the market during the pandemic. The Case-Shiller Home Price Index rose over 11% in January from a year earlier. That's the biggest gain since March 2014. Phoenix had the biggest price gain, where prices jumped nearly 16%. Seattle and San Diego next in line, both with price gains over 14%. One analyst says it's not clear yet whether the trend will fade as the pandemic is brought under control and mortgage rates will likely rise. You've heard about the vaccine passports that you'll have to show before you're allowed into events, stores, etc. to prove you've got the jab. Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says they're unacceptable. He's even gone so far as to plan executive action against them. And a former Clinton advisor says if these become mandatory, it will put an end to human liberty in the West.
Governor DeSantis is planning emergency executive action against the push to require vaccine passports for Americans to travel around the country or the world.
It's completely unacceptable for either the government or the private sector to impose upon you the requirement that you show proof of vaccine to just simply be able to participate in normal society.
In early March, DeSantis already made it clear he won't stand for them, and he said it was totally off the table.
We're not supportive of that. I think it's something that people have certain freedoms and individual liberties to make decisions for themselves.
Bill Clinton's former re-election campaign advisor, Naomi Wolf, is an outspoken liberal and a feminist. She told Fox News making vaccine passports mandatory would be the end of human liberty in the West. She gives part of the reason why.
It can be merged with your PayPal account, with your digital currency. Microsoft is already talking about merging it with payment plans.
Wolf noted it happened in Israel, and months later it became apparent that activists were shunned and constantly kept under surveillance. The Biden administration is not creating CCP virus vaccine passports, but its officials are working with private companies. The administration is helping these companies set guidelines for the passport systems. Those systems can be used for people to show proof when they've been vaccinated. Jen Psaki told this to reporters at the White House press conference on Monday.
The UK might even go a step further. Brits might have to scan their faces before entering the pub. NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
The UK government is considering using facial recognition technology to enter pubs and other venues. But UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson recently said it's too early to decide whether vaccine certificates will be used for pub entry.
There are complexities, moral complexities, ethical problems that need to be addressed, and we'll be saying more about it.
UK vaccine passports will use facial recognition to see if someone has either been vaccinated, recently been tested, or has developed immunity to the CCP virus. He does admit, though, that there are ethical problems that need to be addressed.
The libertarian in me is also trying to protect people's fundamental right to life and their ability to live their lives normally, and the only way really to restore that for everybody is for us to beat the disease.
The Times reports that two tech companies, iProve and Mvine, have received more than $100,000 in grants from the government. And the facial recognition software has already been rolled out to the National Health Service app, which is separate from the government's contact tracing app. Users can access their health records, including test results and vaccinations with it. Approves CEO Andrew Budd says that without some technical assistance to help pubs screen pub goers, it just won't happen. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
The US is warning it will impose tariffs of up to 25% on imports from the UK. It's in retaliation to new British tax on tech firms. NTD's Patrick Hayden brings us more.
The US has warned it will impose tariffs on UK goods if the UK goes ahead and rolls out a digital service tax. US tariffs would cover ceramics, coats, industrial robots and refrigerators, and are expected to raise about $325 million. The UK has proposed a 2% levy on tech companies' revenues, not profits, that are derived in the UK. It's for companies that earn more than $680 million per year and at least $34 million from UK users. Amazon, Google and Apple say they will pass the cost on to their customers. A UK government spokesperson said it wants tech firms to pay their fair share of tax. France is also set to face a similar retaliation as it rolls out its tech tax. Both the UK and France say their tax is a temporary measure until a wider international corporate agreement is in place. The US tariffs will be subject to a review over the next few weeks. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
Still to come. Warehouses across the United States may be getting some help. A robotics company unveiled its latest creation designed for one specific task. Find out what it can do after the break.
Here's what a reader writes to best-selling author James Cook about his new book, The Great Gold Comeback, Bankruptcy of the Welfare State. There is no way I could ever properly express my thanks to you for the Gold Comeback book and all that you have written within it. What a real treasure. Get this hard-hitting volume absolutely free. It covers economics, inflation, socialism, welfarism, capitalism, crashes, panics, interventionism, and crisis. Regularly $29. Yours free. Call 1-800-328-1860.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
The glory of piano masterpieces from the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic periods. New Tang Dynasty Television invites you to join the 2021 NTD International Piano Competition. Together, we preserve and revitalize the art of authentic classical piano music. October 2021 in New York City. Register now at piano.ntdtv.com.
The first electric Hummer has sold for $2.5 million. Barrett Jackson auctioned the vehicle over the weekend to raise money for the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation. It helps injured military and first responders. The 2022 Hummer isn't even built yet. General Motors says the buyer will receive the first vehicle when it rolls off the assembly line this fall. 9 other first productions were also auctioned over the weekend, including a 2021 two-door Ford Bronco for more than $1 million and a 2021 Ram 1500 TRX Launch Edition pickup for $410,000. In all, the auction raked in nearly $6 million for various charities. And the fiasco in the Suez Canal involving the massive container ship that got stuck could disrupt supplies for weeks to come. Although the ship is now free, there's continuing concern about the impact on supply chains. That's because hundreds of ships from around the world carrying vital fuel and cargo have been blocked from entering the canal for days. Mandy Geither has a closer look at the impact this could have on goods around the world.
The giant container ship that's been blocking the Suez Canal for nearly a week is finally free, but the economic fallout is far from over.
There's going to be a global disruption in the supply of goods, not immediately, but a few weeks from now.
Data from shipping expert Lloyd's List suggests nearly $10 billion worth of goods was disrupted each day. Experts say even before the Ever Given got stuck during a sandstorm and powerful winds last Tuesday, supply chains were stretched to the limits. Now experts say this fiasco is making it much more expensive to move goods around the world and causing shortages of everything from exercise bikes to cheese.
It may almost be invisible in certain areas to most people, but what they will see is an increased cost. It's going to be more expensive to haul goods. Vessels that are going around the Suez Canal have to use more fuel.
And the ripple effect of this incident will take a while to unravel. There were hundreds of vessels backed up in both directions. When traffic returns to normal, it may take days to clear the backlog, further delaying goods on their way to customers.
That cargo is not being offloaded. It's not being put on trucks and rail for distribution throughout Europe and England, and it's not being cross-loaded onto vessels sailing to other ports, for example, the United States or Canada.
U.S. robotics company Boston Dynamics is preparing to muscle its way into the warehouse automation industry. On Monday, the company unveiled its latest creation, designed to perform one very specific warehouse job. NTD's Colin Fredrickson reports.
This is Boston Dynamics' new warehouse worker. Stretch is designed for one specific task, moving boxes.
Traditional automation in a warehouse is fixed to the ground and often can't handle a variety of tasks. Stretch is designed to go into some of the most difficult environments in a warehouse and handle dull, dirty, dangerous, physical work.
It has a small mobile base, allowing it to move around tight spaces in existing warehouses so they don't have to make costly and drastic changes for automation.
That means that a warehouse doesn't have to shut down for several weeks in order to get Stretch up and running in their operations.
It also packs plenty of advanced technology to handle complicated situations.
This is enabled by the computer vision system that is installed in the robot. So the robot is able to look at a mess of boxes and be able to figure out, hey, that's a box. I can figure out how to grab it, and I can figure out how to move it to a conveyor belt.
Perry says there's real demand for the flexible solution Stretch offers, especially with the increasing consumer need for fast home delivery.
In the U.S. alone, there's over 150,000 warehouses, and only about 20% of those have sophisticated warehouse automation tools installed within them.
Analysts say the warehousing sector saw an extremely strong 2020, and growth is expected to continue this year. Online shopping amid the pandemic has driven the need for a massive expansion in order fulfillment services. Boston Dynamics hasn't released any pricing for Stretch yet. It's currently seeking customers for pilot testing ahead of its commercial deployment in 2022.
As the latest business updates for today, you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. But for NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.